high school finals of MNC. Congrats to all teams for making it this far. Good luck for the finals. My name is Tanish. I'll be your chef this round. Currently with me is Zoe, Harith, Boon, and Biggie. On OG, we have CRS, Barbie, and CRS, Barbie, and Cain, OO, SRAA, CG, CLPHS, 52 of us, and CO, CLPHS. We are so back. On the motion, this house opposes the narrative you only live once. Like to invite Prime Minister. Stay here.
Hello, can I be heard and seen? Hold on, the glare is actually quite bad.
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay, is it better now? Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Let me just set up my timer for a second. All right, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, the narrative of you only live once in the past 20 years has changed dramatically. From meaning to live your life to the fullest, fulfilling your life's goals, making sure you're on the right direction, to meaning you can do whatever you want because you're young, you're broke, you're free. Do whatever you want because you're still in your prime, right? So let's move on to what YOLO really means in today's world compared to what it really meant in the info slide. Because I think the info slide really doesn't reflect on what YOLO really means to its full extent. So first, let me go into a few pieces of characterization. So firstly, YOLO is basically a narrative used in a majority decision making process. So let's say, for an example, right, you're on a cliff with a parachute, like you're young, right? You're about to jump with a parachute. Take note that you have a parachute at this point. If you were to jump, you would most likely have the justification to that as you only live once or YOLO instead of picking the safest option to like not jump or something other than that. That's only an example. So people use this narrative as a justification to make irrational choices in our world, like probably going drunk driving or partying late at night when you're still like young and free. You still have the ability to, you still have the capacity to make proper decisions, but you choose not to just because you only live once, right? So you want to live your life to the fullest, which us on-site government don't really agree to. Third, people believe that you only live once, so therefore you should do whatever you want before you die, regardless of the consequences. Keyword, regardless of the consequences. So YOLO used to mean that you should live your life to the fullest, but ever since it came into an era of modernization of movies, books, TV, memes, etc., it has meant to live your life carelessly, in this case hedonism, giving you the sense of being free or being young and having no sense of direction in your life just yet. It doesn't propose the same meaning of living your life to the fullest as it did 20 years ago. So a few burdens of proof that side opening government would like to take. Firstly, we would like to prove to you how YOLO is directly harming individuals in making choices. And secondly, in how YOLO directly harms the principle of self-preservation towards an individual and the people closest to them, in this case, the society. So let's go on to a few stakeholders then. Firstly, we tell you that individuals are the main stakeholder here because you are the ones making the decision. You are the ones using YOLO as a justification towards you making bad and adverse choices in the first place. Second is the people closest to them, because in this case of opening government, we're trying to tell you that the second you use YOLO as a meaningless justification towards your adverse actions in the first place, we tell you that you're going to be influencing the people or your circle around you to do so, which is directly harming others around you. Thirdly, society as a whole, because this has become a trend where people online will be like, oh, should I do this, blah, 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 because you only live once, and that is a justification towards that means. But before I go on to my arguments, are there any POIs? 3, 2, 1. So let me go on to the main argument we have in open government. So we tell you that YOLO prompts unsafe and dangerous justification of behavior. Firstly, why? We say this is true because YOLO is oftentimes used in cases of justifying a dangerous option in a choice scenario. Like imagine like just now example, I told you like imagine you're about to jump off a cliff with a parachute. You would normally jump because you only live once. You want to fulfill whatever experience you haven't fulfilled yet. Why is this justification of action bad? We tell you that people will compound their justification by using this narrative for small situations, i.e., people use it for small situations like maybe I'll drive without a driver's license at 17 first. And I want to do that because I only live once, and then it leads to them making YOLO justifications to its bigger and bigger actions. This leads to them making dangerous choices after compounding the small, small YOLOs. The people will then believe that YOLOing is the only way to go and the only justification to their actions if there's no reasonable or logical or logistical justification to their actions then. Why is this important? Firstly, we tell you that the prompting of the use of YOLO everywhere, from movies to shows to social media to in real life, has made people think that YOLO means living carefree, in this case, hedonism. YOLO has grown to mean living carefree and essentially hedonism in this case. We tell you that the narrative of YOLO doesn't put you in any purpose in life or give you a sense of direction, because we tell you if you keep on using YOLO, or if society keeps publicizing YOLO as a justification towards any stupid or dangerous actions, if there's no logistical justification, we tell you that will give you no sense of direction in life, that will give you no fulfillment in life in the end of the day. Why is
Why?
it inherently bad? We tell you that there's two reasons why this is inherently bad. Firstly, yes, opposition can come up here and tell us it's the right to choice for an individual to do whatever to their lives. Firstly, we tell you that people, of course, have the right to choice and sure they can do whatever they want. But secondly, we tell you that YOLO is just a stupid justification, but people can still do whatever they want. Third, the bad part about this ability to right to choice and the ability for you to use YOLO is that when you influence the people around you by making them think that, oh, I can use YOLO as a justification to my life also. Like, it makes other people also think that, oh, it's okay, I don't really care about how my life comes out anyway after this. All I care is what I feel right now. Second, YOLO has an appeal to it. We tell you that the people around you will have like an appeal towards you using YOLO and being influenced by it, because you feel free when you have the ability to have a justification towards whatever dangerous action you want to do. We tell you that if you were to make a decision on traveling to Europe for the first time in your life, you wouldn't really use YOLO. But even if so, it would be for a logistical and reasonable reason. We tell you that YOLO becomes inherently bad when people use it for justifying like small, small dangerous actions. But before six, I'll take that POI. 3, 2.
Wait, I'll give my POI. So, if people, what gives you what's your justification on why people have direction on your side of the house absent the narrative of YOLO?
Sorry?
What gives people direction on your side of the house
Oh,
absent the
okay.
narrative of
On
YOLO?
our side, we tell you that there are multiple alternatives instead of just using YOLO to give people a sense of direction, like living your life to the fullest, living your life in balance, giving people a sense of direction by using multiple methods other than just one justification, which is you only live once. We tell you that you only live once has a tipping point where it becomes dangerous to the point that people start using it to justify their dangerous and adverse actions. I hope that answers your POI. So then we go into the gradual normalization of YOLO and how YOLO has basically become like a new norm where people will start using it to justify their actions slowly and surely over the course of time. So we tell you that, okay, you can start using this narrative to basically justify small actions, but then it leads to the gradualization of you using it to justify bigger and bigger stupid actions, which does like leads to cases where people drunk drive and kill people on the street, right? So ladies and gentlemen, if you want a side that actually cares about individuals, if you want a side that actually prioritizes the safety of individuals over their reckless choices, go for side opening government. Thank you.
All right, thank you, PM, for the piece. I can invite leader of opposition.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1, go. Before moving on to the main chunk of my speech, I would like to start with a little bit with some responses to opening to the Prime Minister. First thing I'd like to call out on their side of the house is the fact that their comparative is very contradicting, with to the point where it doesn't really count as a comparative. Their main push for the comparative is that they're saying that the way that people find purpose in life in their side of the house is by using other narratives such as live life to the fullest, which contradicts their main point because of the fact that that is what YOLO is. And when they say that that isn't what YOLO means, they don't prove this, and there's a lot of logical gaps within their arguments because of the fact that they mention that YOLO leads from one thing to another, but it's not entirely seen or proven from their arguments on mechanisms as to how exactly YOLO leads from the small things to the bigger things. So what I'm going to do in this speech is I'm going to contest their frame. I'm going to name two main arguments as to why YOLO is a good thing. And lastly, I'm going to weigh to be able to engage with their side of the house in a charitable way, which is something that they also don't do. First of all, On our side of the house, what do we think YOLO is? YOLO basically means that you're doing a lot of things, and it's not just doing whatever you want, even though it harms other people, because you have one chance to live. YOLO isn't being used as an excuse on our side of the house, and instead it looks like it doesn't look like people committing crimes and hurting other people and drunk driving. This looks like people stepping out of their comfort zone and trying things that they normally wouldn't try because of the narrative. They only live once. First of all, important clarification that people that do dumb things because of YOLO or commit crimes or like do things that are that are or do things that overly harm the rest of society or themselves. First of all, that's a very small amount of cases because of the fact that people are actually rational, and which would actually align with their with government's case, because they say that YOLO is being used as something to define irrational to as an excuse to do irrational things. I'm going to contest this because of the fact that YOLO isn't actually being used to do irrational things, not even in status quo, because YOLO is normally done to for small things and for the small things in life. You normally say YOLO because you're gonna ask your crush out, or you're gonna say YOLO because you're gonna go out of your house to go to a party, even though you don't normally go to parties. Because the thing is that people that follow the narrative of YOLO are normally going to be people that use the narrative as the reason to step out of their comfort zone, not as the reason to do things that harms themselves or other people, because of the fact that the narrative itself says that they only live once. They're not going to be doing things that are going to be harming that one life that they live. Next, people have the agency to act rationally and not follow the examples of people that do dumb things like drunk driving, for example, because and use YOLO as an excuse. Why? Because people that use YOLO as an excuse to do bad things aren't going to be followed or
Yeah.
looked up to. I'll take that later. This is simply because YOLO isn't a narrative that is always taken 100% seriously in status quo, and it's most likely going to remain that way. Again, YOLO is going to be seen in normal, like small things such as asking your crush out, or generally little things in life that only affect you or another group of people. Ne- Next, why YOLO looks like stepping out of their comfort zone and why that's a good thing. Well, it means exactly that people are normally shy, for example, or people that aren't used to socializing. They're going to go to a party on the night that there is one because they only live once and they want to step out of their comfort zone. This is a good thing simply because stepping out of their comfort zone and trying new things is the main catalyst for growth in people. People grow based on the changes that they go through in life. Which is exactly what YOLO encourages. What YOLO encourages is to stop wasting time thinking about doing the things that you want to do and instead actually doing them. Not only does YOLO encourage people to try new things and learn new things, for example. So, for example, someone want to learn a new language or move to a new country because they only live once and that's what they want to do. It also encourages people to live life to the fullest, enjoying things based on the present moment, not thinking about the past or future, and instead thinking about the present and not wasting a single hour of their life. The impacts of this is simple. It leads to people living more fulfilled and productive lives. This happens because of instead of doing the same things over and over and being stuck of an endless cycle of wasted time and unfulfilled lives, just being on your house, scrolling on your phone, people will instead be going out and trying new things that lead to their growth. This leads to more productive societies because people are going to be going out more and trying new things and living new experiences. Before I weigh this argument to what government says, I'll take that POI.
Okay, firstly, can you respond to our argument on the influence of YOLO towards other people and how that is infringing on like your right to choice? Secondly, can you explain then Drake's Twitter post tagging YOLO while getting drunk on a yacht, and how is that actually leaving your comfort zone and not justifying your stupid actions?
Okay, two things. First of all, the first thing I'd like to mention about the being an example to other people, I already respond to this by saying that people are rational. People are not people are rational. People won't be following people that are, for example, drunk driving. And then second thing, on Drake's example, not only is this um uh an overly radical use of YOLO of the narrative of YOLO, and third, it's also a celebrity trying to use a piece of slang that's getting more popularity and trying to over radicalize to the point where it's being used for overreactive for being used in situations which it's not in the same light as what YOLO actually is meant to be trying what the message YOLO is actually trying to send to the rest of the world. It's and last thing about the Drake thing, it's not a lot of people don't even look up to Drake anymore at status quo. So if you're using Drake as an example, it's not really a good one. On my weighing here, the main th- the be- taking the best case scenario of government side and assuming they prove it, but just this is for the sake of engagement, of which people are doing YOLO for either one, bad things, or two, they fail to do the things that they try. They fail in the regard that, for example, someone asks their crush out and their crush turns them down. This we take that trade off and say that it's a good thing that people are going out of their comfort zone, trying new things, and even if they fail, it's okay because most likely the adverse consequence or effect of YOLO is just like is like something that doesn't have that major of an impact to the point where it's gonna be killing people or hurting people to the point where they're gonna be paralyzed. Most likely it's gonna end in like someone it's going to end in someone just failing to do something that they want to do or not actually or but instead growing from it and changing and learning from it and becoming better people, which is exactly why YOLO is the catalyst for change and growth in societies and in people, especially younger generations. And lastly, the people that do bad things with YOLO, not only is it unrealistic and also not exactly proven, and lastly also something that people won't be looking up to. Even if that does happen, the thing about YOLO is at least they're trying new things with their life and becoming more fulfilled. Proud to oppose.
Thank you. You have opposition like invite Deputy Prime Minister.
Hi, am I audible?
Yep, you're audible.
Okay. Just give me a second to set my timer. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, I knew that side opposition completely misunderstood the meaning of YOLO when they said that, oh, they're good. People use YOLO as justification to learn a new language because that's what fulfills them. Ladies and gentlemen, if you look at status quo realistically, right, the amount of people who use YOLO as some sort of like justification to ask their crush out is so little compared to people who use YOLO as justification to get shit-faced drunk. Okay, so I'm going to be doing my argument today. First, I'll be giving a few rebuttals towards side opening opposition. Then I'll be moving on to my arguments and restating my characterization. Okay, my first rebuttal towards side opening opposition is that they said that we didn't really prove what YOLO means, but we did prove what YOLO means. We tell you that YOLO essentially means to do stuff without prioritizing long-term benefit just for the experience right there. It essentially means that, oh, because it feels good to be drunk now, I'm going to be drunk and get drunk and not care about what happens to me after that because all I know is that I want to be drunk and I want to feel drunk like right now. And they say that our counter proposal or our other narrative, such as live life to the fullest, essentially mean the same thing as YOLO, and it's like directly symmetrical. But we tell you it's not the same thing because live life to the fullest means to achieve your goals and do what fulfills your purpose. Yes, it's true that they sound or mean the same thing, but understand the implications behind the two. Just because it sounds the same doesn't necessarily mean that it means the same. You only live once is essentially implying that you only live once, do whatever you want. Live to the fullest means do what fulfills you, do what fulfills your purpose, achieve your goals. And they tell us that people use YOLO as a sort of like narrative to justify doing things like, oh, learning a new language, asking a crush out. But understand that nobody in the history of ever has ever used the word YOLO to justify meaningful things. Like, for example, if you want to learn a new language, no one has ever used YOLO as a justification. And understand that people in status quo are not that rational, right? Do you understand our caveat? We already mentioned earlier that our caveat is that YOLO has this appeal to it because it gives you that feeling of being young, wild, and free. So therefore, people are going to buy into it because people are not really that rational. Side opening opposition failed to prove to us how people are rational enough to sort of like believe, to sort of have their own belief. They never proved to us how people are rational enough to reject the idea of YOLO, right? And also, they tell us that like YOLO is used as like a justification, right? But we tell you that people use YOLO to do stupid things, like for example, failing tests. So for example, if I said I just failed my test, YOLO, that's a stupid justification. It doesn't do anything to further boost side opposition's case, right? And tell you that, oh, celebrities are not really a good example, but understand that Drake is a celebrity. Celebrities influence people to do stupid things. Like for example, when Trump influenced everyone to storm the Capitol because he wasn't happy with the current president in office, right? I understand that the amount of people who use YOLO as a justification to do good things are so little compared to the people who use YOLO to do terrible things. Right? Okay. No, thank you. Okay, moving on to my first argument, right? My first argument in this debate is principle of self-preservation, right? Okay, so fully understand what self-preservation means. Self-preservation is essentially the principle where a person should and can do whatever is necessary to protect their life and ensure their well-being, right? But when you practice YOLO, you essentially water down this you water down this sense of self-preservation because you essentially believe that you can do whatever you want and you're going to be okay. People who believe in YOLO have this false belief that they're going to live once, so they should do whatever they want regardless of the consequences, but they fail to recognize that when you do YOLO, your risk of dying is becoming increased, and you're essentially quickening the process of you dying. You understand that you have no guarantee of how long you're going to live because you could legit die anytime. Practicing this YOLO mindset is just increasing your risk of dying and speeding up that process, because people who practice YOLO have this perpetual belief that they're going to live until a long age, so they should do whatever they want to fill in the time before that they die, right? But understand that when you practice YOLO, you are out there engaging in dangerous activities such as cliff jumping off, skydiving, right? So you're essentially increasing your risk of dying and quickening that process, right? And okay, fine. Even on our worst case, we concede to what side opposition says. We concede that everyone can do what they like with their life because of freedom of choice. But understand that you can do that, not at the expense of other people, because you can influence other people to believe in this as well, as my first speaker already said. As we mentioned earlier, our caveat is that YOLO has an appeal to it because it gives that feeling of being young, wild, and free. And even in status quo today, it's already been proven that people are not that rational. So therefore, they're more likely to buy into this YOLO narrative because it's a justification for them to do whatever they want. Majority of people who buy into YOLO are young people, since they don't know any better. And the impact of this is that individuals will have no sense of self-preservation because they look at these dangerous choices as fun activities. It's sort of the line between dangerous and fun becomes very blurred. Like, for example, they would know a serial killer is dangerous because they could kill you, but they look at jumping off a cliff as fun and totally wouldn't kill you at all. You're diminishing the value of self-preservation, which ultimately harms an individual, right? And side opposition has to concede to the fact that when you diminish this value of self-preservation, you are not doing anything better for these individuals, right? And my second argument would be that when you practice YOLO, right? When you practice this YOLO mindset, you are normalizing it. You are going down a very slippery slope. People might use YOLO to justify small reckless decisions. For example, should I get a buzz cut? Should I dye my hair platinum blonde? Oh, YOLO, I'm going to do it anyway. But understand that when you practice YOLO to justify those small reckless decisions, you're going down a very slippery slope because you are perpetuating this mindset. You are continuing it. You are making sure that this mindset will carry on with you for basically forever. You're basically telling yourself, okay, it's okay, I can do whatever I want, because you have to understand that nobody wakes up and decides, okay, YOLO, I'm going to jump off a cliff. It starts small and it eventually grows into something bigger, which is what we ultimately don't want in today's status quo, because we tell you that when you go down this very slippery slope, it's hard for you to climb back up that slope, because once you perpetuate that mindset, it's going to stick with you. Right? And before 6, I'll take any POIs. 3, 2, 1. Okay, no. Okay. And I'm going to be reinforcing my first speaker's points, where we tell you that YOLO basically prompts unsafe and dangerous justification of behavior. And we tell you that this is true because YOLO is used in cases, as I mentioned in my first speaker's speech, YOLO is used to sort of justify dangerous decisions. And we tell you that this justification is ultimately bad because we tell you that people will compound their justification by using this narrative for small situations. That is the logical link between my arguments, which side opposition clearly doesn't see, and they say that we lack. That is the logical link between arguments. When you compound your justification by using narratives for small situations, you're basically going down that slippery slope and using it to justify bigger, more dangerous decisions like jumping off a cliff. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to ask your crush out, don't use the narrative YOLO. Just do it. Nobody uses that justification. That's all from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. Let's invite Danial. Here.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, both.
Okay. Before I start, shout out to Joff, who is in this room, my senior. Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Already from the first 3 speakers, there's a deadlock between the definition of YOLO. What you hear coming from opening government is a very uncharitable and not a very uncharitable characterization of what YOLO is. But then 2 reasons as to why YOLO won't be used for bad reasons, and that their framing of YOLO is not necessarily the right characterization of what the narrative of YOLO means. Number 1, they literally go against the info slide. Like it's the info slide. What we think YOLO means on our side of the house is that you will use it to justify certain actions, whether they are good or bad. We think YOLO is not necessarily limited to young people, as it can be utilized for every single person, regardless of their age, regardless of their maturity. But second, tackling on as to why it's generally uncharitable, and the reason as to why YOLO can be used to just YOLO can be used for any reason. Number 1, they tell you that the tipping point is that when YOLO is used for bad when YOLO is used for bad actions. But not that they only emphasize on this point and they never and they never respond to what anything of my leader of opposition tells you about YOLO. Why it can be used for small reasons as to what as for like asking your crush out or like doing small things. They limit YOLO as a justification to use for they limit YOLO, the narrative of YOLO to be used as justification for for situations when they're only bad, when they will only necessarily inherently harm you. Which when we think that this is like a very generally a very uncharitable characterization because you're only limiting it to the bad. Limiting it to the bad situations. But even then, let's tackle them and like let's take the worst case of our house. Even if people do use these, even if people do use YOLO on our side of the house and use it to justify their bad actions, we think it's still good. Why? Because when you do YOLO and that you use it to justify for bad actions like being drunk or whatever, or just justifying any certain bad action, you have the agency to learn from this because you knew that you committed a mistake. We think that YOLO is good on our side of the house because even if you do YOLO, you still have the capacity to like improve from this. You have the capacity
Right.
to learn your mistakes because you were able to experience it in the first place. The problem I get then with opening government is that their comparative is very unclear. Like what we hear coming from prime minister, they tell us that their comparative is to live life to the fullest. Note that you can't just differentiate YOLO and living life to the fullest by doing one liner. There has to be like several layers of mechanism, and you can't just separate them using one liner. What exactly do they tell us that like separates YOLO and like living
POI.
fullest? We think living life, we think YOLO is necessarily living your life to the fullest because you want to experience as much action, you want to experience as much experience that you could possibly do. We think YOLO then is basically living life to your fullest. But the second thing we hear coming from Deputy Prime Minister is the fact of self-preservation. The problem we have with self-preservation is that you do not experience anything. You are going to become a reclusive hermit that will never do anything in life because you are afraid to because you are afraid to do anything. Not this is going to be the likely
Right.
comparative on opening government side of the house because they tell you that if you don't do and because they tell you that they actively go against they actively oppose YOLO and that they're going to self-preserve themselves because it's better and it won't inherently harm the person. The problem in self-preservation is that you're too scared to do things. But even if you do things, you won't do it to the fullest. You won't feel fulfillment out of it because you're not maximizing these actions because you're afraid that this action will necessarily harm you. You're afraid that you will not you're afraid that this action will have severe consequences when in reality it won't. The definition I want to push then, before I proceed with definition of YOLO, I'll take a POI from the last person who raised it.
Okay, let me just tell you two things. The reason we went against the info site in the first place in my speech was because the meaning of YOLO has changed significantly in the past 20 years, from meaning live your life to the fullest to meaning live your life carelessly. Secondly, you say that we mentioned a one-liner even though we gave you 3 layers of analysis as to why YOLO's meaning has changed and why that is impactful in the first place.
No, I meant the reason why I said you give a one-liner is when you try to differentiate living life to your fullest and when you try to differentiate living life to your fullest, which is your comparative, and YOLO, which is our comparative on your side of the house. Earlier, what I've done for you in my speech is responding to the 3 layers of mechanism as to why YOLO won't necessarily be used for justifying bad actions. But then moving on to my first extension, why people will have the agency to utilize YOLO and justify good actions. But even then, I already did the trade-off where even if you use YOLO to justify your bad actions, you are still able to learn because you were able to experience it in the first place. And even if you take the worst case where you die, where you become limited, where you like sustain a where you have a life sustaining injury, at least you were able to do the thing in the first place. Note that this already engages to like everything that this already engages to what Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister has to say. But moving then on, why people have the agency to use YOLO to justify their good actions. Number one, because you want to go all out. You want to maximize this, and you want to make sure that everything good comes out of this, right? I think it's a very unfair characterization to limit it to bad actions. We say on our side that it can also be used for good actions. Like for example, like small actions like asking out your crush, doing this thing that you've been procrastinating on for a long time because you fear that you will fail.
POI.
We think what YOLO then looks like on our side of the house is that when you spend a lot of time and effort because you only live once, you want to make sure that it will necessarily work. Going all out 100% means that you want to make sure that the outcome will be good. You will spend a lot of time and resources making sure that whatever you're doing, the outcome will be good because you want to maximize this. But then we think on our side of the house,
24/6.
we won't be burned out or tired because you love doing this. It feels fulfilling for you, and you know will be happy in the end. But even then, let's take on two cases, and why they're significantly better on our side of the house. The first case is that if you succeed at the thing that you do, you have no regrets. You're gonna become happy because you succeeded, right? You were able to ask out your crush. Now your crush is your girlfriend. But even if you fail at this particular outcome, you have the ability to learn from you have the ability to learn from these mistakes because you were able to experience it in the first place. The problem with opening government is that they don't have the capacity to even experience these things at all because they want to self-preserve themselves. They want to they want to like put themselves in like a bubble where they don't move out of their comfort zone because they're too scared to harm themselves, because they're too scared to experience things. The reason as to why experiencing these bad things is good is because you are able to experience them, you are able to get back up because you're intrinsically motivated. Why? Because of the narrative of YOLO. We think the impacts of these are clear. You become a better person and you achieve growth better on our side of the house. We think fulfillment is very important this round in this debate because fulfillment equals happiness. If you're able to achieve fulfillment, which you do from YOLO, you will become a happier person in life. For all those reasons, very proud to oppose.
All right, thank you, Diallo. I'd like to invite member of CUP here.
I'm sorry, give me a second, please. Okay. Wait. Yeah. Hello. Am I audible and visible?
Yeah, audible.
Okay. Um. Okay. Um. Okay. Yeah. Pronounce he. Oh wait. Let me check if my mic. Oh yeah. Okay. Pronounce he him. POI's preference verbally. I'll be starting my speech. Wait, yeah. I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, give me a mop and a bucket to solve up this whole mess of a debate. Okay, first of all, I'm going to talk about some things I would like to say. So firstly, on opening government, right? Opening government focuses on the fact of safety and all those, but it doesn't tell us about the other things like economy and all those things. But for us as closing government, right, we will be like extending on that and give arguments on that. Okay, for opening opposition, right? For opening opposition, what they lack is actually on the fact that recklessness is still exclusive to their side. for both sides, there's recklessness, but the other side has more recklessness and doesn't have an alternative solutions on how to solve recklessness and how the other side has less recklessness. Okay, so this is how during my whole. So I won't be giving any rebuttals or responses because I'll be giving to my wit speakers, and then I'll start with setups and then go into my extensions and arguments. Okay, starting with my setups. Our burden is simple. As stated, it's just to prove why this narrative hurts the people and the safety of a people. Okay, the characterization, I think a few things, right? On the stance, right? Our side of narrative, you live once, YOLO. What this suggests is that if someone were to want to be reckless, we will still let them go ahead. Touching those in my comparatives. So what does the narrative YOLO looks like, right? The narrative of YOLO promotes the idea of living boldly, often associated with taking risk, and then pursuing desires and avoiding excessive hesitations or regrets. So why is this the case, right? This is because a person with the narrative thinks like, since I only have one life, right? I should be doing everything I want before I die. Yeah, I might think, for example, that right, that they are gonna die anyways, right? So they should be focusing on parting and fulfilling the pleasures of getting this happiness. So the sense of direction for individuals can be like jobs or families that should be. So if they don't want, go ahead, do YOLO, do YOLO. But on our side, we are still gonna have less people being reckless compared to your side of opposition side due to the disincentivization of YOLO. So comparative of government, right? Our world is one where the narrative of YOLO is heavily opposed. What this means is that the narrative will be heavily criticized on social media and whatnot. So this also means that there's no real policy into stopping everyone, right? So they will, if they want to be reckless, go ahead. So however, since the narrative is being opposed on social media and everywhere, right, it incentivizes the people to not live with this narrative, to not live with YOLO. Why? Because it's a negative narrative and often discouraged on social medias and all sorts of platforms. So the counterfactual of opposition side is basically like the people are highly encouraged and take up the mindset of YOLO. So the narrative will be glorified and encouraged onto the people. So the moving extensions, my extensions on the point of economy and money is basically in terms of fulfilling your happiness, you will go drinking and gambling is also a thing that will fulfill your happiness. Oh, sorry, no. So basically, gambling and drinking is also one thing that will fulfill your happiness, right? So the fact that you are doing YOLO since I have one life only, and then I'm so depressed today, why not I go to drink and gamble, and then like until then it becomes so slowly you will like so tonight I have nothing to do. Okay, go gamble. I have nothing to do. Go gamble. I have nothing to do. Go drink. Go to a bar. It's of gambling is to get happiness, right? And get these things to fulfill their satisfaction, right? Instead of doing all these reckless things like stated, they will also go do these things that are also harmful to their health and to their money, to their wallet as well. They wouldn't think about their money at all, but because they are focusing on the fact that they want to fulfill their own satisfaction and have fun for this short term only. So the solution is basically we are highly opposing YOLO on social medias, etc. So the money is safe, and instead of doing all these things, they can do different things to fulfill their happiness, right? So they may still do it, so like go ahead. So, but us have to consider deeply about their decisions, especially for the future. Sorry, no. Okay, moving into my arguments, like stated by opening government, the other side promotes recklessness and incentivizes people to live in the short term. So the status quo, what's wrong with the status quo, right? The people right now, YOLO tells them that they only live once and can only do things once. So leading to two outcomes, like the first outcome is basically recklessness, and they will use this time to do those reckless things like tower climbing, skydiving, and all those, leading to these outcomes. Why is this the case? So this is because the narrative incentivizes the people to do whatever they want. Usually a person without this mindset of living only once will consider the future and the long-term safety of themselves, right? Due to the fact that this narrative tells you to experience everything you can before dying, this promotes recklessness to the people. Second thing of all, overemphasis on immediate gratifications, on it will affect the planning, discipline, sustainability of one's decisions. They only think of what they are doing right now. So why would they wouldn't consider the outcomes? Why would this be the case, right? Discipline relies on self-control, right? Which involves delaying gratification to achieve long-term objectives, right? So yeah, YOLO undermines this by shifting the focus on the present only, but not thinking about the future and what will come after them. So example is basically choosing to party instead of studying for an important exam might provide momentary fun but risk academic success. Solution is simple. We are heavily opposed to YOLO on social medias. So YOLO is negatively criticized on social medias, right? A few outcomes. First of all, the people not incentivized to do this narrative, so lesser people will practice this narrative. Second of all, opposition, and a few things I want to say on opposition side might say you can't control the people doing these reckless things, right? Firstly, if they want to do, then go ahead. However, on our side, we still get more, right? On your side, since your side has the incentive for people to take up this mindset where we disincentivize people to do this, what this means is that yes, we concede there will be people still doing, but your side has more people doing these reckless activities. So our side has people to consider about their own outcomes. And yeah, moving into my impacts is basically lesser recklessness, first of all. Then more people might think more and consider more about their future and their outcomes and consequences, where they can think about the futures, because YOLO is basically just thinking about things right now, the present, where economics, etc., safety and all those will be affected, and the fact that they won't think about the future and all those. So yeah, I am more than enough proud to propose.
Great, thank you, member of CAF. Let's invite member of OP.
Give me a minute to set up my timer, but before that, I want to make sure that I am audible and visible.
Yeah, you have to vote.
Okay, sure. All right, let me set up my timer. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. As a member of opposition, I will be providing a response. I'll be providing responses. Preparing responses, then giving my main arguments and saying why we differ and win over opening opposition. All right. Firstly, responses. Opening government says something along the lines of YOLO being evolved badly into basically making like people reckless and promotes recklessness, and saying that people will on our side will make irrational decisions regardless of consequences. First thing I would like to point out is their opening government's case is entirely deconstructed. And moving on to the actual response. The main problem with this is the logical rigor of it all. OG says that people will make irrational decisions that may harm them in the future. This is not really analyzed and is illogical. And they also didn't give impacts and with little to no mechanism. Even if this manifests, however, people will have the moral responsibility and rationality and the incentive to protect themselves. And people already have the mindset of living their life to the fullest. Why would you live your life to the fullest if you were going to make a decision to just harm yourself, right? Hence, we urged the panel to not buy OG's case whatsoever. And also, last thing to point out is that about this response is that they used for some reason they used Drake as an example, which is just not good, right? All right. Now moving on. Before I start my argument, I would like to say some things about the people's incentives. YOLO incentivizes people to live life to the fullest. Right. First incentives of the people is that they want to follow and chase their dreams. Society is very demanding, right? And the people are discouraged to follow their dreams. This narrative gives people the need and incentive to follow their dreams. I.e., example being, I live life only once. Why should I not chase my dreams and passion and break free from this very demanding society? The second incentive for people is appreciating the present. People do not have the chance to mindfully and treasuring to be mindful and treasuring relationships, experiences, and personal growth. society is very demanding, right? People work for long hours, and this results in in it holding them back. Now, onto my actual argument. Our side, posing opposition is claiming that we encourage people to follow their dreams and reject regret and live life at the moment to the fullest, right? The problem is that now onto some problem analysis. The people are scared to follow their dreams and have less time to and have less time to appreciate uh their relationships, right? Society is also very demanding and forces people to work jobs they don't want and are unable to fulfill their dreams. It makes people regret a lot of their actions. Moreover, people can't spend time with relationships, right? They can't focus on themselves due to the narrative of how society operates. This the negative outcomes of this is that people are not able to grow and develop. I.e., if people are held back from achieving their dreams, this doesn't allow them to self-develop, and this prevents them from being a better character and person. And the second negative outcome is that people aren't given the ability to appreciate the moment. Jobs are very tiring, right? And these things restrict people into a cycle of dreadful routines and tasks. Time is not given to people to cherish and appreciate and spend time mindfully and freely. The solution is just to support the narrative of YOLO. How does this solve the problem? Uh, this gives people the narrative to think and incentivize that they are only living once and hence should follow their dreams before their time is up. And this gives them the moral boldness and the daring feeling of facing a fear or live once, right? Example of this being like starting a business, taking risks to grow that business, right? And spending time with family and break societal norms. They will learn from their mistakes and they will also learn important moral values and lessons. Hence, they're gonna reject regret because they follow the narrative and live their lives to the fullest, which means they have no regrets. They will also step out of their comfort zone and do things that they want to try for the first time. Moreover, people are also able to cherish the moment and appreciate the relationships and themselves, right? The impact of this is that people follow their dreams. Why is this important? Because following their dreams is in line with their incentives, as we mentioned, right? And like on our side, more people will follow their dreams. Why is this? And also, second thing is that more people will follow their dreams. Why is this exclusive? Because the people on their side don't follow their dreams, and while some people might, uh, the majority of people will not, right? However, the majority on our side will fulfill their dreams. Why is it in line with incentives? Because the people following their dreams is the incentive itself, and people will cherish the current moment and appreciating the current moment and living a more productive life. Before I get on to the general comparatives, if op opposition side rebut saying that we will have more reckless people, just now as I said in my response, people have the incentive to protect themselves. No. People have the incentives to protect themselves and um they have
Yeah,
no and rationality and the incentives to protect themselves, right? Just now, as I just mentioned just now. All right, now moving on to some general comparatives. On their side, people don't follow their dreams and regret their lives a lot, right? However, on our side, none of this is present because we actually follow our dreams and don't regret and reject regret because we follow our dreams. Now, on to why we differ from opening opposition. They just on opening opposition, they just define like what they keep going back and forth on what YOLO actually means and the info side and stuff, right? However, we say how it actually helps the people, right? We are better in the sense that because we say how this YOLO helps them, which is better because these people are the main stakeholders of this debate. We also provide the incentives of the people whilst they didn't, and there's like only talks about the little things like asking your crush. However, we talk about much larger things like starting a business and like their dreams, which is like starting a business, right? Why and finally, why our side wins over OG? First of all, they run an entirely deconstructed case with nothing, with um, no impact that benefit their stakeholders, and their entire case is illogical and with not fully analyzed arguments, and they limit YOLO to certain narratives that only harm the people. And with that, I am proud to oppose.
All right, thank you, member of Up. Let's invite up with.
Give me a second to start my timer. Thank you so much. All right. POIs verbal. However, I'll be giving a time frame for where you guys can give POIs, and other than that, I won't be accepting any POIs. Second thing, pronounce he, him, and without further ado, I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. If opposition sides were was a world where YOLO really was just used for small activities and beneficial activities, we would gladly side with their house. However, let's be realistic and not idealistic. Very proud to propose. Okay, a few things to note before I move on to my rebuttals and clashes, right? We differ from opening side. First thing to note, we differ from opening side because of the fact that we add analysis to why they'll be more reckless, right? We also proved how their future will be worse, even if there will still be reckless people on our side. So the delta between both sides of opening and closing government is the fact that even if we concede that there will be reckless people on our side, the point still stands, as this is basically added analysis, right? We also added extra characterization for what YOLO means. We told you that, and therefore this proves that we are better than opening. And we also solved the deadlock in which what YOLO means, as I'll be moving on to further stuff, right? Also note that we mentioned in our member of government that even at our worst case, where there'll still be people with the narrative of YOLO, we tell you that the people on your side are more harmed, are still more harmed, as I'll be proving my clashes, due to the fact that we don't normalize it. Okay, second to last thing to know, the narrative of YOLO promotes the idea of living boldly, right, as characterized. This is the case because the person with this narrative will think, oh, I only have one life. I should be doing everything I want before I die, right? This is further supported by the fact that opening opposition literally mean that a person would live their life recklessly, right? So we say this takes opening opposition out of the debate, and we say that all both closing and opening government's characterization stands. Last thing to note, that opposition's entire case relies on their setup, and I'll prove why this is false in a second. Okay, let me move on to my rebuttals. YOLO doesn't. Okay, so what did opposition tell us? They told us that YOLO doesn't look like committing crimes because you only live once, right? We tell you that this does actually happen because they only live once. Therefore, they'll commit that crime with this narrative of, oh, we only live once, so why should we care? And even if this isn't the case, due to the fact that, as mentioned in like the Drake example OG gave, right? We tell you that the narrative would change along with the people saying it. And let's not take away from the fact that opening opposition literally conceded that the meaning of YOLO have changed to live your life recklessly, right? Even if this isn't the case, your side tells us that YOLO will be used in small things, right? And this will worsen. And that isn't the case because this will worsen because, like, as we can see in status quo, where people can jump off cliffs going YOLO, what suggests that this won't happen from like having a just confessing to your crush because you went YOLO to jumping off a cliff to committing crimes. Why wouldn't this cycle, this chain continue on, right? Even if this isn't the case, the likelihood is higher on your side. And we tell you that the only example that opposition provided was confessing to your crush. This is the only beneficial thing that YOLO can bring. Okay, even if this isn't the case, I'll give a chance for opening opposition to give further examples. Any POIs?
We never stated that we
3,
conceded to the fact that if you do YOLO, you're going to live your life reckless. It was a weighing material. So we can say that if you do a reckless action, you're gonna bounce back from it because you were able to experience in the first place. Whereas on your side, you never experience anything. You become a reclusive hermit.
Give me a chance to rebut that, right? But your side still mentioned that you will still be committing more reckless stuff, right? So you say that you can learn from your mistakes. However, there's zero mechanism for this. And even if this does happen, we tell you that learning from confessing to your crush is not necessarily that good, nor provides that much benefits, right? And since opposition failed to give us any other examples other than confessing to your crush, we tell you that it is not likely that there will be any benefits coming out from YOLO. Moving on to the main clash of today's debate, on which side harms the people more, right? 3 metrics to weigh this off of: solvency, the scale likelihood a part of it, and the time frame part of it, right? Before I move on to my clash, quick summary and rebuttal before I move on to the clash, right? What did opening government tell us? They tell us that in the future it'll be bad because it'll turn from a small case to the big case, as further supported by my rebuttal just now, right? And the fact that this will justify reckless behavior in opposition side, right? What did opening opposition tell us? They tell us that they will have a more fulfilled life. However, we ask you that there is no examples given other than confessing to your crush, right? How exactly will they get a fulfilled life from YOLOing? There is no examples nor any mechanisms, right? And even if they somehow do, we tell you that they have more of a chance to do bad from this YOLO narrative, right? And what did closing opposition tell us? Yeah, closing opposition. What did they tell us? They tell us that the people won't they will appreciate the moment, and they tell us that the people will follow the dreams, right? First of all, why is this exclusive? And even if these 2 points still stand, why wouldn't they party in the moment instead of studying? Because they want to be happy in the moment, right? And how would they follow the dreams if they're gonna try to be happy in the moment, right? This is just unrealistic, and we tell the chair to not credit the entirety of CO. What did our side tell you? We tell you that in the long term, the life of the people will be worse, right? In opposition side, so therefore on our side, we tell you that the life of the people in the long term will be better. We also extended on how to be more reckless, right? Okay, for the first metric on the likelihood of it, there'll be 2 layers to this metric, right? For the first layer on OG versus our side, right? We tell you that we better benefit the people and not make them as hurt. What did OG tell us? They tell us that there'll be a justifying of their reckless activities, right? So yes, this is likely to happen. However, we tell you that we are still better than OG because there are 2 more reasons as to why this is more likely to happen and why we are more likely to benefit people, right? First, we told you how in the future, the people who will YOLO will have no future. We tell you how the people who don't YOLO will have a better future because they will be focusing on their future compared to focusing in the now, right? Second, okay, for example, like if they YOLO, they might not want to study and they'll party. No, that's not enough time. Second layer to this. Okay, second reason to this. We also extended on the point that OG gave us, so we're just better overall, right? Second layer to this metric on the fact like OO versus our side, right? What did OO tell us? That you get a more fulfilled life, not only did they never explain on this, there's not even a high likelihood to get a fulfilled life because according to status quo, right, we tell you that encouraging people to live recklessly and risk their lives by jumping off a cliff is not what is necessarily beneficial to them, right? Plus, being more forced and being more focused on the present is not likely to bring you a more fulfilled life, right? And even if it does, it won't in the future, as I'll be proving it on later. We tell you on our side, the people will make more rational decisions, right? That's our entire members' case. We tell you we are more likely to benefit the people because of the pure fact we will think of the future. And why will we think of why will we think of the future? Because we won't go, oh, since I'm gonna die soon, let's prioritize the now and let's be as happy as possible, right? Our side doesn't have that narrative, therefore we'll focus on the future, right? Therefore, we win both sides on the likelihood of it. Moving on to the second metric I'll be weighing, the scale of it. On my first layer on OG versus CG, right? We tell you we benefit the people more because of the fact that we offered more arguments, right? And we already analyzed this in the previous metric. Moving on to the second layer on OO versus CG, right? And let's assume that even if we get a fulfilled life, we tell you we get it more because we focus on the future and of lives like the people, right? Moves perfectly on to my third and final layer, which is that in the long term, both opening and closing houses of government will benefit the long term of the people, right? What is opposition suggesting? They're suggesting us to focus on the now, to focus on the present. And what are we suggesting? We're suggesting them to focus on the future, and therefore they will have a better future for therefore it's beneficial to them. So we win on 3 metrics. Very proud.
All right, thank you, Dr. Let's invite up with end debate.
Yeah. Okay. Give me a moment to set my timer. No, not working. Give me a moment. My timer is not working. Okay, it's working now. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Government has completely misunderstood on our case, on the opposition case. They said that they believe that people do not have the logical rigor and they believe that people would be reckless enough to do things that actually harms them life. And also, they also said that people will do reckless things and they also want to focus on the future and not the present at all. But we on our side of the house, we have told you many, many times what are we doing in the present, what are we believing in the present also directly benefits the future. And me as opposition whip, I'll be proving why this is on ours and my speech. Now moving on, I'll start with my rebuttals to tackle their whole entire government case. So first things first, OG said that people will make irrational decisions that may or may not harm them, and this will cause people to do really not reckless things that will harm them physically and mentally. So first of all, this argument is so they don't really better benefit the individual stakeholders of this manifest. However, people that they aren't really that not irrational, because people, they have the moral responsibility and they also have the rationality and also the
Point of information
of the incentive of protecting themselves, and people already have the mindset of their life to live the life of the fullest. So people wouldn't just really go and do experience things that are dangerous to them, because this literally breaks the point and contradicts why you want to live life the fullest. Why would anyone live life the fullest if they are literally ill, if they are literally let's say passed away? There's no point. So hence we urge the panel to not buy the whole entire opening government's case whatsoever. Moving on, for the closing government, they said that people would do really reckless things. For example, they give examples of such as gambling, such as drinking, instead of doing anything that will better fulfill themselves in the future. First of all, this point isn't really analyzed to the fullest, and this isn't likely to happen. So two things. First is that people are rational. If they want to fulfill their dreams, they wouldn't consider these negative habits, because first of all, this will create negative outcomes for them, so they are not able to fulfill their dreams long run. So second thing is that people will only do this when their environment or their mental health is being affected, because people will try to use these ways as a means of escapism on their side of the house. But first things first, their side of the house, they ran a deconstructive case. They didn't provide a solution or a metric on how are they going to solve this, how are they going to encourage people to look for the future, how are they going to encourage people to better benefit themselves in the future, right? They didn't provide a solution. So we also urge the panel to not buy their argument as well. But we, on closing opposition, we provide a counterfactual on how people are going to get that gratification and not go through certain methods, such as the methods we explained before. Now, before I move on to my questions, are there any POIs?
POI.
3. Yes.
Given that the fact that they won't have this narrative of living only once, right? Since your side says that they'll focus on the future and not focus on the now, what would be the
First of all, we did not say that we'll be focusing on the future, and we did not say that we're not going to focus on the present as well, because on our side, we said that we'll be cherishing and appreciating those certain factors that will benefit ourselves in the present. Now, the delta on our side of the house, the things that are changing is whether people are able to grow, whether people are able to see the betterment of their lives. But you on your side, you didn't really tackle on this issue whatsoever. Now, moving on. So, which side better benefits and supports the people? So, on the government bench, they said that they want to prioritize safety. They believe that people will make irrational decisions that will lead to terrible consequences. So, there isn't any impactful material given by the government bench on how it really benefits people realistically and charitably. And also, closing government gave examples and framing such as gambling and alcoholism, and no other examples that will actually benefit and motivate people to do better things for the future. Now, moving on. So, on opposition, we tell you that our side prioritizes the people's mindset and their morality. We give them the belief and the incentive to cherish and appreciate the moment. We give them the belief of taking risks and following their dreams. So, this will lead them to have fewer regrets, look forward to the future, and improve and grow. So, now on the scale, which side actually has much more impacts that will benefit them? So on side government, their material is illogical and not really analyzed. They ran a deconstructive case that doesn't really provide any impact that will positively affect the stakeholders. They are also limiting the narrative of living your life to the fullest, living a narrative such as YOLO to certain negative things, and they are not allowing people to grow whatsoever. So panel, would you rather be restricted in doing things from your choice on the decision of your life, or would you rather be given the opportunity to change and given the opportunity to grow and improve? So on their side of the house, they are trading off the safety for the less of experience, for the less of learning new things, for the less of learning important values that will better benefit you in your life. So they lose this trade-off because people aren't able to grow. People aren't able to learn from their mistakes. People aren't able to learn from things that happened in the past and look forward. So this harms the stakeholders more because they just pull them back, and it gives a narrative that people are scared and people are not going to give the in future rejected. So moving on. So on our side, we are able to benefit the people more because people will be significantly better on us. So they have the opportunity to take risks, the opportunity to learn and grow from risk and mistakes. So they have the opportunity to move on and cherish. This is important and exclusive to us because we give them the purpose and the possible belief on how are they going to improve better and on how are they going to move on and learn compared to side government where they are just limited a certain boundary of thought. People are also given the chance to learn and grow. Hence, this is important for their personal development. Now moving on to the likelihood scale. On side government, this is unlikely to happen because first thing is that people are rational. People aren't going to take it too far. They also use examples such as Drake. So, however, this doesn't really prove their point, as these reckless celebrities, they usually have a very terrible reputation, and people aren't really that irrational enough and illogical enough to follow them. So this point doesn't stand. Moving on, closing government also gave examples such as gambling and drinking. So this It isn't going to happen in people's life if people actually wants a change. So this won't happen if people are having the incentive to better benefit their lives. So on our side, on our side of the house, it's more likely to happen because we link the incentives to the people, and people are given away to meaningful lessons, the ability to treasure relationships and live life to the fullest, so they can focus on themselves and develop themselves. Moving on to short term and long term. So on government, they cause people to be held back due to restraints for their safety. They aren't going to learn meaningful lifelong lessons. On our side, people will treasure and appreciate life more. They will have less regrets. They will have better decisions. They will learn lifelong lessons and virtues that will align with them for the rest of their lives. So we win this clash and this debate as we give important impact on how we are going to better benefit the stakeholders and how we're going to weigh on how people will be much more better and benefit on our side. And as they can grow and develop, cherish the present and also focus on the future as well. Hence, I am very, very proud to oppose. Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone for the debate. Rashun, do you want to stop recording?
Yep.
All right,
Will the
cool.
results only be given during the closing ceremony?